When the apocalypse came, my husband moved his first love, Su Yuchen, into our wedding home. 5 years into the apocalypse, Su Yuchen was pampered like a little princess by my husband, never wanting for food or clothes. While everyone else couldn't even get a sip of water, Su Yuchen bathed every day. As for me, I could only drink her bathwater, chained up on the balcony like a dog by them. Later, I was even sent out to be used as a plaything. It was only after I died that I realized the reason they were living so well in the apocalypse was because my husband had stolen the Jade pendant space my grandmother left me before she passed. When I opened my eyes again, I found my husband had once again stolen my Jade pendant and started spending lavishly with Su Yuchen to stockpile supplies. I knew then that they had also been reborn. But I remained indifferent, and instead turned to the government to tell them about the impending apocalypse. While they buried themselves in debt and filled warehouses with supplies, waiting for the apocalypse to descend, the disaster never arrived. The pain of death had not yet faded when I suddenly opened my eyes from the darkness. A soft footstep sounded by the bedside, followed by the sound of the nightstand drawer being pulled open, and my heart pounded. I was reborn, returning to the day my husband stole my Jade pendant space. In my past life, after the spring festival, before March even arrived, the temperature in the south suddenly and eerily rose to 30 degrees. Everyone thought it was just a climate anomaly, unaware that it preceded an asteroid's approach to Earth. The asteroid itself was small, but it carried an anomalous compound that triggered a catastrophic chain reaction in the upper atmosphere. The ozone layer collapsed, and the planet entered years of lethal heat, extreme cold, drought, and darkness. On the second day of the apocalypse, young Mingjue moved his high school sweetheart, the first love he had never gotten over, into our marital home. Not only that, the two of them hoarded all the supplies at home and locked me out on the balcony. If not for my fierce will to survive, I would have died from heat exposure in the first month. When the extreme cold arrived, they let me back into the room, making me take care of Su Yuchen like a servant, and only then would they give me a few sips of her bathwater to drink. From that point on, revenge became the only thought that kept me alive. I couldn't understand why, despite the scarcity of supplies, Su Yuchen remained fair and tender every day, even changing her dress daily. Suspicion arose in my heart. It turned out the two of them lived so freely, all because of the familiar Jade pendant hanging around Su Yuchen's neck. That was a keepsake left to me by my grandmother. Before the apocalypse, young Mingjue, in order to hook up with Su Yuchen, had his eye on my Jade pendant, that was our Lin family heirloom. I turned my head away, my eyes filled with hatred, glaring fiercely at young Mingjue. Young Mingjue was so startled by me that he shuddered all over. Suddenly, he flew into a rage. "Bitch! Who are you trying to scare?" I sat up and turned over, looking at the Jade pendant in his hand, and asked in a low voice, "What are you holding in your hand?" A flicker of guilt passed through young Mingjue's eyes, then he became self-righteous again. "You're married to me now, so isn't your stuff my stuff? What's the big deal if I use it?" I sneered and asked, "A grown man like you, what do you need my Jade pendant for? To curry favor with some cheap woman outside?" Thinking of how Su Yuchen had once beaten and kicked me, even humiliating my dignity, I wished I could kill both young Mingjue and Su Yuchen, that adulterous pair. But this is a society governed by law. My hands gripped the bedsheet tightly. Revenge on them. I have plenty of ways. Young Mingjue reached out to hit me, but I rolled over and dodged. He clutched the Jade pendant and refused to let go. He knew it concealed a pocket dimension. Looking at young Mingjue's expression, I suddenly realized that young Mingjue had also been reborn. To snatch the Jade pendant, he might even do something as extreme as killing me tonight. After all, the apocalypse would arrive in a month. He only needed to hide my body for a month, and once order collapsed, who would care about someone who died before the apocalypse? I curled my lips coldly. You want the Jade pendant? Yang Mingjue frowned at me, unsure what kind of trouble I was about to stir up next. I smiled. Fine, as long as you agree to divorce me tomorrow, this house goes to me. Yang Mingjue refused. Why should I? I retorted, on what grounds? This house cost 2 million, and I paid for it in full. When we got married, you said we were family and tricked me into adding your name to the property deed. I'm just taking back what belongs to me. Yang Mingjue began to think it over. He figured that rather than burning bridges with me right now, it would be more trouble than it's worth. He might as well take the Jade pendant first, go with Su Yuchen to take out a loan and buy supplies in bulk, then kill me when the apocalypse comes and take over my house. So Yang Mingjue nodded and turned to leave, saying, all right, see you at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. I couldn't care less about that Jade pendant. Because I know how to end the apocalypse. Back then, Yang Mingjue and Su Yuchen handed me over to one of the base's most powerful men, a disgraced observatory researcher named Li Fei. He was the man whose deliberate silence had allowed the apocalypse to happen. Li Fei was in charge of monitoring the asteroid that struck Earth. Before it was about to hit, he clearly detected it, but he assumed the asteroid was small and wouldn't pose a threat to Earth. So he concealed the report, which led to the severe consequences that followed. There was still 1 month before the disaster, and Li Fei would discover the asteroid's collision course the next day. As long as I report it to the country, the now powerful China will naturally have ways to shatter this asteroid with missiles. It will all be over before the apocalypse even arrives. Then I'll see what Yang Mingjue and Su Yuchen, those two bastards burdened with huge loans, are going to do. With that thought, I finally slept soundly. The next morning, after a hearty meal, I went out to find an agent and listed the house on a sales platform at a fairly favorable price. The agent said that barring any surprises, it would sell within a week. Then I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to handle the divorce procedures with Yang Mingjue. Coming out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, that shameless woman Su Yuchen was actually waiting right outside the door. Seeing Yang Mingjue, Su Yuchen seductively wrapped her arm around his, deliberately revealing the space jade pendant on her neck, and looked at me with smug satisfaction. Lin Jinin, thank you for letting Mingjue and me be together. I looked at the two of them and smiled as well, letting the words slip lightly from my lips. No need to thank me for that. A bitch matched with a dog, you two are a perfect pair. Su Yuchen hadn't expected me to fight back. Her face turned ashen, and she raised her hand to strike me just like she had before my rebirth. But I slapped her back instead. Yang Mingjue immediately shielded Su Yuchen, his eyes filled with heartache and affection. Even though my heart had long turned cold, it was only at this moment that I realized, Yang Mingjue had approached me from the very beginning just to take over the Lin family's inheritance, to get his hands on the house under my name. Yang Mingjue and I were colleagues at the same company. After he heard that my parents had died in a plane crash while traveling to Thailand, he suddenly started pursuing me. At that time, I needed someone to lean on, so I believed him just like that. It wasn't until the apocalypse that I learned he had been secretly dating Su Yuchen from high school through college, but her family looked down on him for being poor and forced them apart. Yang Mingjue then sought me out, planning to use tricks to take my property and win Su Yuchen back. Too bad Yang Mingjue had no idea that even in the apocalypse, Su Yuchen, relying on her space and the supplies he handed over, secretly went out and slept with plenty of handsome men. She had been cheating on him repeatedly. Su Yuchen pointed at me, the venom in her eyes nearly spilling over. Mingjue, go kill her for me. Yang Mingjue, however, disapproved and whispered in Su Yuchen's ear, once the apocalypse begins, we'll deal with her. For now, the priority is to stock up on supplies. Su Yuchen glared at me, fuming, Lin Jinyin, you just wait. After saying that, she grabbed Yang Mingjue and left with him. I stood where I was and called one of my father's old friends, Uncle Wang. Uncle Wang was a retired financial investigator with contacts throughout the lending industry. He knew how to document concealed assets, fraudulent loan applications, and every other shortcut Yang Mingjue was likely to take. My voice was calm. Uncle Wang, it's me. I've divorced Yang Mingjue. He cheated on me, and now he and his mistress are trying to borrow money for a supermarket. I want you to make sure every application is lawful and every false statement is recorded. Uncle Wang immediately understood. His voice was kind. All right, Jinyin. If they commit fraud, there will be a clean evidence trail. Don't worry, I've always treated you like my own daughter. Whatever happens, Uncle will always have your back. At these words, I couldn't hold back my sobs any longer. If I had had family in my past life, there's no way Yang Mingjue and the others could have bullied me to death like that. After hanging up, I took a cab straight to the police station and asked to see someone in charge. The officer looked troubled. Unless it's something serious, it's hard for me to report it up the chain. I took out my ID card. I am reporting researcher Li Fei for dereliction of duty under my real name, treating the safety of Earth as if it doesn't matter. When he discovered an asteroid approaching Earth, he didn't report it. Instead, he concealed this information. The police officer didn't fully grasp the danger of this asteroid. Though confused, he vaguely understood the seriousness of the matter from my grave tone. He immediately made a phone call. But unexpectedly, I didn't get the leader. Instead, I got Li Fei, whose face was grim. Li Fei pushed the door open and came in, his voice cold and sinister. Who reported me? I turned to look at him and frowned inwardly. I had not contacted the National Astronomical Monitoring Bureau directly because I feared that someone there was protecting Li Fei and might suppress my report. I did not expect Li Fei to learn of it even after I bypassed the bureau. My voice was firm. I'm the one who reported it, so what? Li Fei, do you dare say that the asteroid designated YR4 only has a 3.7% chance of hitting Earth? Just this morning, the instruments showed the probability of it colliding with Earth had already soared to 80%, and it was even issuing warnings. Li Fei looked me over. Who from the Monitoring Bureau sent you? Under his gaze, my back actually felt a chill. Before I died, Li Fei had used many methods to torment me. On the surface, he looks like a proper researcher, but behind the scenes, he's extremely twisted. But I forced myself not to step back. I had heard the phone call that police officer just made to his superior. If I'm not mistaken, the higher-ups are already on their way here. Seeing that I remained silent, Li Fei immediately thought I was an easy target and threatened. Falsely accusing someone can land you in jail, you know? But in a flash, I had already figured out a countermeasure. Just as Li Fei was about to step forward with a grim expression to grab me, a stern voice came from behind him. Who are you planning to send to jail? Li Fei, I didn't know the Monitoring Bureau had the authority to make arrests. Li Fei paused mid-motion, a look of annoyance crossing his face. I looked over, and the first thing that shocked me was the number of stars on the newcomer's shoulders. I quickly said, it was my ex-husband Yang Mingjue who told me. He and his affair partner Su Yuchen both came back from the apocalypse. The two of them are now buying up supplies in bulk. If you check, sir, you'll find out. The superior who arrived was very kind. He had someone find a safe room and let all relevant personnel come in before he said, tell me what you know. I took a deep breath and said, I overheard Yang Mingjue and Su Yuchen on the phone. They said that in 1 month, the asteroid named YR4 will collide with Earth, plunging the planet into a doomsday apocalypse of natural disasters. Various calamities will strike frequently, causing countless human casualties. I roughly relayed the situation from my previous life through Yang Mingjue's words. The superior's expression grew increasingly serious as he listened, even showing some anger. He asked Li Fei in a low voice, "Li Fei, do you have anything you want to explain?" Li Fei tried his best to defend himself. "Director, that asteroid seemed to be heading toward Earth, but it was only the size of a watermelon. It couldn't pose any threat to Earth at all. There have been similar situations before. Besides, reporting it would require writing too many reports, and Li Fei couldn't be bothered." But I interrupted him. "Its size isn't the danger. The anomalous material it carries will trigger the atmospheric reaction that destroys the ozone layer." Li Fei's face turned pale. He looked toward Director Chen of the National Emergency Administration and Director Qiao of the Monitoring Bureau. Chen offered him no protection, while Qiao kept his expression carefully neutral to avoid exposing their connection. At Director Chen's command, the country began emergency preparations while scientists and defense officials worked to intercept the asteroid. As a result, Yang Mingjue and Su Yuchen discovered that they could no longer buy supplies even with money. Holding large sums of cash that they couldn't spend, the two of them went frantic. Yang Mingjue and Su Yuchen found their way to the entrance of my company's building. Glaring at me fiercely, "Lin Jinin, what have you done?" I looked at their two anxious eyes and laughed with satisfaction. "I didn't do anything." I shrugged my shoulders. "The country is rationing food, what does that have to do with me?" Yang Mingjue wished he could kill me with one punch, but Su Yuchen seemed to think of something, and she forced out a kind smile. "Lin Jinin, you've been reborn too, haven't you? Don't you wonder how I managed to live so well in the apocalypse in my past life?" I played along and asked, "Why?" Seeing that I was interested, Su Yuchen's eyes flashed with a hint of contempt, but she kept a friendly expression as she linked her arm through mine and whispered in my ear, "Because I have spatial powers." Watching Su Yuchen's smug demeanor, I felt sick to my stomach. She was holding the spatial jade pendant my grandmother gave me, yet she claimed it was her own spatial ability. "I'll just see what she's up to." Su Yuchen said, "How about this? When the time comes, the three of us will live together in the apocalypse. You go buy supplies and put them in my space, and we'll stay in the house Mingjue assigned to you. What do you think?" What a nerve. Those two are taking everything, food and all. I chuckled and said, "But I don't have any money." I hesitated for a moment, then said in a low voice, "Though, my parents' old friends have connections to buy supplies, but it's quite expensive, and they only accept cash." Su Yuchen's eyes lit up. "Then Mingjue and I will give you the money, and you go buy supplies for us." Yang Mingjue took the bait too. They weren't afraid I'd take their money and not deliver. After all, I'm just a woman without spatial powers. How could I possibly outsmart the two of them? But the two of them didn't know that the apocalypse would never come again. Originally, in 1 week, an asteroid was set to collide with Earth. But just last night, a missile launched by China had already shattered that asteroid. I put on a cowardly act, pretending to fear death. "Let's get this straight, I'll buy you food, but when the apocalypse comes, you two have to take me with you." Yang Mingjue's eyes were full of annoyance and impatience, but he still nodded and perfunctorily said, got it. The next day, the two of them brought 3 entire suitcases and packed 5 million for me. Looking at the 5 million, I curled the corner of my mouth. "All right, you just wait." I took the money to Uncle Wang, who placed it in a regulated escrow account and documented its source for investigators. I would not spend money obtained through their fraudulent loans. The proceeds from selling my own house remained in my personal account, giving me enough to begin again without taking what was not mine. No stockpile could compare with preventing the apocalypse and preserving a peaceful society. As long as there was a chance to stop the disaster, I would take it. Even if interception failed, an informed government could prepare shelters and distribution systems instead of allowing society to collapse into chaos. Fortunately, the apocalypse crisis was resolved. Li Fei had been detained pending trial. I bought a plane ticket to the coast for the following week, planning to rest for a few days before beginning my new life. But regarding this matter, Su Yuchen and Yang Mingjue discovered that I had played them both. Furious, the two of them followed my car all the way to the entrance of the hotel I was currently renting. The moment they saw me, Su Yuchen lunged at me directly. "Lin Jinin, you bitch. I told you to go buy supplies, where the hell did you disappear to?" I kicked her away with one swift motion. At this moment, Yang Mingjue and Su Yuchen surrounded me. My sharp eyes caught sight of the weapons in their hands, and I inwardly cursed, realizing that since the apocalypse hadn't come, I had let my guard down around the two of them. Yang Mingjue sneered, "Selling the house, swindling us out of our money." He reached out to Su Yuchen, who conjured a knife out of thin air and handed it to him. Yang Mingjue said mercilessly, "The space, that's our greatest reliance. Other people can hoard food. We'll have weapons. The day before the apocalypse, we'll raid abandoned stores once order collapses. We'll never run out of food or drink." Yang Mingjue extended his knife toward me. "I'm going to make you know what happens when you dare to mess with the two of us." There was something cold pressed against the small of my back, giving me a bit of reassurance. I had delayed my departure precisely to lure Yang Mingjue and Su Yuchen into revealing what they could do with the pendant. I asked calmly, "Su Yuchen, you don't actually have spatial powers at all, do you?" My gaze fell on the necklace around her neck. "You have the space because Yang Mingjue stole my pendant." Su Yuchen sneered, "So what if that's the case? You're not thinking of trying to snatch it back, are you?" I slowly let a smile spread across my face. As it happens, the reason I booked a ticket for a week from now instead of leaving immediately was for the space jade pendant my grandmother left me. Everything Su Yuchen and Yang Mingjue owe me, I will collect back one by one. At the small of my back was the gun the National Emergency Administration had issued for my protection and trained me to carry. In the shadows, it was still the special police officer sent to protect me. Yang Mingjue looked at me and spat, "What are you playing at, acting so mysterious? Lin Jinin, you're nothing but damaged goods. Don't talk about living two lives. Even if you were reborn countless times, you'd still be nothing but a toy in my Yang Mingjue's palm." As he spoke, he had Su Yuchen take out 2 funeral urns from the space. Seeing them, my face changed, and my eyes burned with fury. Those were my parents' ashes. When my parents passed away, Yang Mingjue advised me to keep the ashes at home, so that whenever I missed them, I could still talk to them at home. At that time, I was moved to tears by Yang Mingjue. Few people would be willing to go to such lengths for their girlfriend. Although those were my parents' ashes, everyone is generally quite superstitious about keeping things of the dead at home. It was this gesture of Yang Mingjue's that made me completely trust him, fall in love with him, and even later, no matter how he coaxed and deceived me, I believed him easily. I remember when I left, I took the urn of ashes with me. I whipped around, looking behind me. It was Director Chiao of the Monitoring Bureau. He looked at me calmly, his voice somber. "Everything was going according to plan, Lin Jinin. You destroyed the network I built inside the bureau." A jolt ran through my entire body like an electric shock. Now, at last, everything became clear to me. No wonder in his last life, Li Fei was the one who withheld information, yet he still lived so well in the apocalypse, it turns out the director was Li Fei's backer. The two of them felt they had no chance to cross class boundaries in a peaceful society. So they concealed the news of the asteroid, stockpiled a large amount of supplies a month in advance, and then waited for the apocalypse to arrive, establishing a base completely under their control. Li Fei and the director were like petty tyrants of the base, acting recklessly and living far better than they had before the apocalypse. Yang Mingjue's venomous voice rang out, "Lin Jinin, do you think you're the only one who can find a backer?" I looked at the three of them. Director Qiao had been the one feeding Yang Mingjue and Su Yuchen information after our rebirth. While I had contacted the emergency authorities, the pair had approached Qiao and offered their future knowledge and the Pendant's pocket dimension in exchange for privileged positions in the base he planned to build. Yang Mingjue and Su Yuchen laughed triumphantly. "Lin Jinin, oh Lin Jinin, you're just as stupid as in your last life. So what if you got a second chance at life?" I drew the gun from behind my waist, aimed it at Yang Mingjue, and said coldly, "Nothing much. I lived a whole second life so I could stop the two of you." Su Yuchen curled the corner of her mouth, grabbed Yang Mingjue's hand, and the two suddenly vanished into thin air, then reappeared just as suddenly. "Didn't expect that, Lin Jinin. We can still enter the space." "A single gun, who did you think you could kill with that?" Director Qiao sighed and asked hypocritically, "Lin Jinin, did you really think the asteroid was destroyed?" At that very moment, a commanding voice rang out from the shadows, "Oh? So you're saying the missile I saw launched with my own eyes was fake?" The moment I saw Director Chen emerge from the shadows, I breathed a sigh of relief. I remembered the day I went to report Li Fei. When I finished telling everything I knew in the room and was about to leave, the leader secretly called me back. He leaned back in his chair, looking weary, and told me, an analyst like Li Fei couldn't suppress a planetary alert on his own. Someone with authority must be protecting him. "Lin Jinin, can you tell me everything you remember about the apocalypse?" The director, whose hair had turned white from a lifetime of dedication to the country, bowed deeply to me. "For the safety of the people across the nation and the world, I beg of you." Seeing him like this, the resentment I had harbored during the apocalypse, when I struggled desperately and no one came to save me, suddenly vanished. After all, it wasn't as if no one had come to save me, was it? At least in China, there are still people who devote themselves wholeheartedly to the people. So I began to try hard to recall everything I had experienced in the apocalypse, including the inhumane treatment I had suffered. In the quiet room, only my suppressed voice of pain could be heard. After I finished, Director Chen stood and patted me on the shoulder. "You've endured more than anyone should have to. I have a strong suspicion who is behind Li Fei. He may be working for a foreign network. Until we know more, please keep this confidential." Watching his somewhat hunched back, I stood up and asked, "Is there anything I can help with?" The man turned around, looking at me with a gratified expression. And so, this elaborate trap was set in motion. Behind Director Chen stood a formation of Special Forces officers, silent and alert in the darkness. Seeing so many people, Su Yuchen and Yang Mingjue immediately panicked. "What's going on here?" Yang Mingjue looked at Director Qiao in despair. "Didn't you say the apocalypse was still coming? We both trusted you so much." Director Qiao had not anticipated the trap. His hands trembled as he reached for a gun, but officers surrounded and disarmed him before he could flee. Yang Mingjue immediately grabbed Su Yuchen's hand and roared, "Get into the space. Get into the space now." But Su Yuchen seemed hesitant. "Maybe we should turn ourselves in." "Actually, we didn't really do anything." Looking at the two of them, uncertain and indecisive, I suddenly said, "That's right, you two didn't do anything. I can testify for both of you, you were forced. Su Yuchen was wary. What kind of trick are you trying to pull? I'm telling you, Lin Jinin, there's enough food in the space for me and Yang Mingjue to last a lifetime. Even if we go into the space, we can live just fine. And don't even think about getting revenge on us. Despite saying this, the lonely life in the space without outsiders, just the two of them, with no internet or food delivery, how could two people accustomed to modern life be willing to simply retreat into the space like that? At this thought, Yang Mingjue's attitude also began to soften. I said slowly, return the pendant voluntarily, and I will ask the authorities to record your cooperation. That is the only promise I can make. I turned toward Director Chen, who nodded. No one is above the law, but genuine cooperation will be included in the record. Seeing Director Chen support my offer, Yang Mingjue's eyes flickered, and he instinctively smoothed his hair. Su Yuchen didn't see it, her mind entirely preoccupied with hesitation. Then how do you guarantee that? I reached out my hand to her. Give me the pendant, and you can surrender without anyone being hurt. Su Yuchen's grip on the pendant tightened. You just deceived us. Director Chen added, I will personally witness the handover and ensure the procedure is documented. At last, Su Yuchen placed the pendant in my palm. Officers took her and Yang Mingjue into custody without firing a shot. When I returned, Director Chiao was already in restraints, and Director Chen was waiting nearby. After a moment of hesitation, I handed the pendant to Director Chen. Take this for research. He seemed surprised that I would entrust something so valuable to the state. I smiled, this thing in your hands will be of far greater use than in mine. Besides, keeping an object this powerful would put a target on my back. With a nostalgic look at the pendant in my hand, I said, the only reason I wanted it back is that it's a keepsake left to me by my grandmother. Director Chen slowly saluted me. On behalf of everyone this may help, thank you. I waved off his thanks and returned to my room late that night. The asteroid had been destroyed, and the apocalypse I remembered would never happen. Director Chiao's main cell had been dismantled, though investigators were still tracing several members of his network. Yang Mingjue and Su Yuchen were charged with financial fraud, conspiracy, illegal possession of weapons, and attempted murder. The false loan applications Uncle Wang had documented became part of the case. Their cooperation in surrendering the pendant was recorded exactly as Director Chen had promised, but it did not erase their crimes. At the pre-trial hearing, they tried to blame each other until the judge ordered them to be silent. Months later, both were convicted. When I heard the verdict, I felt no triumph, only release. They would never control my life again. I hailed a cab and went to the airport. Ready for a vacation. The moment before boarding, I was stopped by an extremely handsome man with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. I looked at him, puzzled. He was a man of few words. He placed my grandmother's pendant in front of me. Under your supervision, the research team spent several weeks safely separating the pocket dimension from the Jade. The pendant is only a keepsake now. A hint of genuine smile appeared in my eyes, thank you. With that, I was about to board the plane. Unexpectedly, the man followed behind me. I turned around to look at him. The man pressed his lips together, my name is Xiao Zheng. I've been ordered to protect your safety. He added, some members of Director Chiao's network are still unaccounted for. I've been assigned to protect you until the investigation is complete. Director Chen had not dismissed the danger simply because the main conspirators were in custody. For once, someone in authority had taken my safety seriously. I reached out my hand to him, not refusing the leader's kindness. Then I'll be counting on you from now on. The man took my hand, lowering his eyes to hide the shyness in them. A year later, the international monitoring network created after the YR4 crisis was tracking every hazardous object in near-Earth space. The evidence from the Pendant's former pocket dimension had also advanced emergency food storage research, but the Jade itself remained an ordinary keepsake in my desk drawer. Xiao Zheng's assignment eventually ended. By then, neither of us needed an official order as an excuse to stay in touch. I had spent one lifetime waiting for disaster and another racing to prevent it. At last, I was free to live in a future that no longer frightened me.